What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another chance encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building. I'm joined today with Rebecca Jameson. How are you doing today, Rebecca?
I'm doing great, Dan. How are you?
I'm great because today I have my very favorite audience member joining us today. And why is my favorite audience member here? It's because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate investors. That means syndicators, that means buyers, sellers, all that kind of stuff. Now, why would I do such a silly thing? Well, it's because if you want access to what are called private deals or 506B raises, you have to have a documented prior substantive relationship so that when the SEC comes checking through your books, they can see that you actually are finding out that you know people's level of sophistication, appetite for risk, all that kind of fun stuff. But before we get into too many details about Rebecca and your business, do you want to say a thing or two about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, basically, my husband and I, we are still relatively new here to the multifamily realm, but we spent the past year and a half paying off a bunch of debt, and now we just want to do something smart with our money.
Good call. Good call. All right. So the first segment that we go through here, it's the motivation piece. Before we do that, though, I gotta say, but wait, check your eight, Rebecca. I don't know if you can see through your camera and into the user's device, but down there on like if it would look like 7 or 8 o'clock for you, it's five
hmm
o'clock for the audience. There might be a hideous red subscribe button instead of the really nice gray one. I don't know if you can see. No, it's just a stupid joke I do in every episode.
I'm like, I don't see any subscribe button.
That's funny. But I've interviewed a whole whack of commercial syndicators and I've met even more, but I found that even though we all have our unique version of a why, I found that you can take everybody's reasons and distill them down to five distinct motivations. And in every episode, I go through each one because, after all, these acquisitions, they can take months. There's lots of things that can go wrong. So I need to make sure that somebody has a good enough reason to follow through with it. Now, the first reason why some people make a commercial real estate acquisition is because they're preserving their purchasing power. And what's that all about? It means if you already have a portfolio of assets and the way that you make ends meet is from the proceeds or profits from ownership, then the only reason you're going to make another acquisition is either if inflation is eating away at your purchasing power or if you can buy at a steep discount. Now, neither of those, that's not really what I'm up to. I'm not at that phase right now. What I am up to, though, especially because I got a background in tech, is I want to trade my time directly for wealth. What does that look like? Well, when you're in tech, and just so you know, my background is in CRMs and it's the mass marketing, mass emailing, but also the accepting of credit cards in the integration of those. So it's an e-commerce thing. But the problem with having a high wage, high salary is you're paying more in tax than anybody else. So it hit me, how can I pivot so that I'm getting rewarded in the form of deployed equity, deployed capital? And that's why I am involved in these acquisitions. But a lot of people, that's a little bit too subtle for them. What they're really up for is taking control of their schedule. Maybe that means working fewer months per year or fewer weeks per month or something like that. Or maybe it means they want to fast track their retirement. Regardless, they're doing this so that they don't have to work as hard at some point, and that's a great motivation. But the next one is in stark contrast to that. These guys, they're so ambitious, they will keep hustling into their 90s. They want to buy their entire hometown. They want to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job, and that's why they are making these acquisitions, and that makes them a great part of the team. But the fifth group, they're also going to hustle their entire lives, and the reason why they're making these acquisitions is because there's a sector of society, or maybe it's the environment or animals or who knows what it is, but they figured out that you need a substantial financial backing if you're going to make a real big impact, and that's why they're making acquisitions. So Rebecca, of those five different motivations, what combination of those describes you best?
Oh, I'm definitely trying to buy back my time for sure. Especially my husband's time. I actually just recently left my W-2 job. We put ourselves in a financial situation where I was able to do that, fortunately, but my husband is still working overtime. And so my main focus right now is getting him to the point where he only has to work his base pay, and then we have all this time together as a family.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that brings me to my next question. There are lots of stories around of people, they say that like 90% of the millionaires out there became so through real estate. But at the same time, you got to understand that this is pretty risky. So when I see somebody new to the space, I need to make sure that they understand there are risks involved and all that sort of stuff. And there's a standard questionnaire that a lot of securities attorneys ask when you're doing a 506B raise and you're documenting your relations. But I found that their questions weren't that good. So I replaced the tolerance for risk assessment with this fill in the blanks question. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. Now, it could be real estate, it could be outside of real estate. Rebecca, what's too risky for you guys?
Oh, I would say probably Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And mainly because I don't know, can I curse?
No,
I
sure.
don't I don't know shit about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's always funny, like I'm the tech guy. I got the tech background, so I get it, and I still am like, it's like, yeah, nah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
where I stand on that one.
what I tell people is like I'm not cool enough for that. So we'll leave that to the younger kids.
You're not just eating it right up like this right here, like
Exactly.
the subscription subscribe sandwich. This kills me every time it comes up, and just wow. But we're not talking about sandwiches. We're talking about commercial real estate. And in every episode of Chance Encounters, I pull out the Dan Does Deals Commercial Competency Cube. And you can get your own copy of this, and you're probably going to want to, because I'm going to go through all the sides. It takes about 2 minutes, and it goes through the 6 different roles in a commercial deal. And if you go to dandoesdeals.com, you can get your own free copy. And like a dummy, I don't even ask for your contact information. That's a terrible thing to do, when you're giving away a freebie. But the important thing is I want you to have no barriers to downloading, printing out your own copy, and then you can practice explaining these 6 different roles. And then that way you can confidently communicate on the subject of commercial real estate deals. But let's go through each one, and then that way you'll know exactly how my guest fits into these deals. The first role is the repositioner, and they're an acquisitions person, so they're looking at a bunch of different properties, and they're doing a bunch of paperwork. What are they doing with the paperwork, you may ask? And the answer is, there's a fancy word for it. They're underwriting the deal. That means they're figuring out, first of all, is this property even making the amount of money that the seller claims it is? Because it might not be, but a lot of people just call these guys investors and these guys investors and those guys investors. I split them up because a repositioner is the person who is figuring out how do we make changes to the property to find more upside. And one of the other things that a repositioner always has to do is they have to have some investor relations. That means talking to financiers, people who give out loans. Why would they do that? Well, the financiers, they're not going to be doing any work. They're only going to deal with paper and money. And if the financier is willing to offer the repositioner or sponsor a more advantageous loan, then that goes straight to the profitability of the building. So that's one of the expenses. So if you get a cheaper loan, then you can make more. But let's assume that that's not in the cards. The physical way that a repositioner is going to be looking to find upside is by the operations team. Make them more efficient, stop those Benjamins from going down the toilet. But of course, there's more than unclogging toilets and collecting rents and mowing lawns and all that kind of stuff to operations. Like one of the things that I bring to my GP teams is the mass marketing and the automation side of things. And that might not seem like something that's that important, especially if you're talking 100 units or more, where you might be outsourcing the operations to a third party. But if you have a vacancy rate problem, that marketing part is going to really come out, and it's going to be very, very important to get those units filled. But When the repositioner has the building at first in their acquisition, chances are there's not enough room in operations to really find upside. So the other thing that's on their mind is getting a contractor team in there to do a value add. In other words, doing renovations on the units so that they're nicer. And then the next tenants or residents will be happy to pay more in rent than the previous ones. But contractors, you can spend more money than you have on construction and building and fixing things up. That's not, it's not so sure that you're going to get the ROI. So if you are like me, and I don't know if you know this about me, I'm from the internet. So that means I need locals. I need boots on the ground, somebody who can be there in an hour or two, because that's not going to be me. I'd still be stuck at an airport in an hour or two. So I definitely need locals on my teams. But when the repositioner has assembled this team and they have a property in mind, they turn around to the financier and say, let's say hypothetically, hey, this building's like 350 units and we're tens of millions of dollars. Do you happen to have, say, tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us? And there's going to be one question you're looking for tens of millions of dollars, right? But the one question that's going to be on the financier's mind that I haven't mentioned yet, and a lot of coaches and gurus, they really gloss over this part, is they're going to ask, who is the sponsor KP? And what's that all about? Well, even if, let's say, you're a physician or an engineer or something like that, or you have lots of wealthy friends and you decided, oh, well, let's pool our resources and let's take over a commercial property. One thing that the bank is going to insist on is that somebody in the fold has to already own a similar asset, or you're just not going to be eligible for the loan. On top of that, you're going to need a certain amount of liquidity. And then among the owners, you need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan. But if you have all those pieces, you've got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So, Rebecca, I imagine that you're in the repositioning and also investor relations sides of things. But do you want to go into a little bit more detail, or where do you see?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, I would definitely say I'm in the repositioning piece of that. I am an analytical person by design. That's just the way the good Lord made me. And so I love underwriting. I actually had, 3 deals come across my desk today that I'm like anticipatingly waiting for those T12s and rent rolls so I can dive deep into those numbers and see if it's going to be a good fit. So that's my jam right there.
All right, I love it. I love it. So then the next question has to do with ideal property, and I'm sure you'll get to that in a second. But just so that you have your cheat sheet ready here, when investors, syndicators, and whatnot are asking about commercial properties and asking for your buy box or what your ideal property is, there are three main factors that they need to know. First one's going to be geography. Where is it? So which states, which counties, possibly even which neighborhoods, okay? That's going to matter. Second one's going to be size. Now on this show, usually my guests are in multifamily, so unit count is the way that we define size. And the reason why it's so important is because you're going to get different types of groups taking down 5 or 15 unit apartment complexes compared to the 150 unit complexes, okay? So that size matters. If they're in industrial or some other forms of commercial real estate, they might go off a square footage, but same thing, size matters. Third one though is the class, and sometimes people just use the same word class for two different things. I like to separate it out for succinctness. The first version I call the condition. And so that's how old is the property? Is it up to date? Is it, like a really old build? Is it no frills, or does it have lots of amenities and luxuries? Okay, that's the first meaning, or in other words, the condition. The second meaning of class, it's what I call area. And when they're talking about the area, they're really specifically asking about what's the crime rate like? What are the school districts like? And what about the amount of traffic where the property is located? But both of those two meanings of class are used, they use the same rating system as in grade school, where you got A plus at the top and then A minus and B plus and so on. But Rebecca, as far as you and your organization goes, where's the sweet spot? What is easier to say yes to and more difficult to say no to?
So we're anywhere from a C to a B class. So whether it's C, C plus, B minus, B, that's kind of what we're looking for in terms of the property itself. Obviously, I would prefer for it to be in like a C plus to an A type neighborhood, and that's what we're looking for.
Okay, and then what about states?
We're focusing Texas right now, Southern Texas specifically.
Okay, cool. And then for unit count?
I am looking at 50 and above. However, I would prefer 50 and above. However, I do take a look at properties that are above 25 units. It just gets challenging with that because once those, you have one vacancy and that just throws all the numbers off. So.
I love it. I love it. All right, then the next question, it has to do with people. And it honestly, my favorite part about commercial real estate is that because it's multifaceted, you've got these different roles. Nobody is going to be all six for any meaningful amount of time, but we also have our own unique skill sets. And that means we're going to be able to help some people more than others. And I always want to know who you're disproportionately well suited to help. Me personally, because of my tech and marketing and all that kind of stuff, that background lends me to look for sponsors and KPs because they've got the foundations to make a big difference when they've got someone who understands the technology and is willing to implement it the way that I do. But I more and more am finding that locals are another group that I need to speak to more of. But how about you, Rebecca? Oh, if you have any 506B raises, don't entice investors. So if you have any like donuts, like don't wave them in front of the camera because that's enticing and stuff. But you can say, talking to beginners or, but who are you looking to help?
So really kind of because my husband's in law enforcement, okay? And one of the things that we've noticed, because I actually have this as well, is there are some people, and my husband had it too, there are some people that have like these random like 401ks from like a previous job, right? They're just kind of floating around, not really doing much for them. And so now with these, these self-directed IRAs that are available, that's kind of what like my focus is. It's like, okay, people, you've got these investments that are not doing much for you. Like, let's try to figure out a way to make that work a little bit better for you for your future. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on. That and, these law enforcement professionals that work a buttload of overtime and just start spending their money wisely.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. And then the last thing is how to reach out. And I'm really easy to find because I got the distinct last name right here. And if you scan this code here with your phone, that'll send you to the FAQs page of 506BME, which is a platform where I help syndicators document their substantive relations so that the SEC, when they end up auditing you, which is going to happen if you get to a certain size, even if you're totally on the right, I help people with that. So you have the record, the IT of, tolerance for risk, core competencies and whatnot. But as far as you go, Rebecca, what are the best ways to reach out?
We're pretty active on Instagram at Harbor Capital Partnership, our website, harborcapitalpartnership.com, or email me, Rebecca at Harbor Capital Partnership.
All right, sweet. Then the last thing is actually not for you, Rebecca. It's for you in the audience. It's the public service announcement, which is if you've been watching this episode and you've been experiencing searing pains in your eyeballs and like migraine-like symptoms, I'm confident it's a direct result of the hideous red subscribe button that's down here, and it's free to get rid of it. You just click on it. And the reason I want you to do it is because then, if enough people do it, YouTube might actually start paying for these videos instead of me, which I think would be amazing. But as far as you're concerned, it doesn't cost you anything. All it means is that my videos might show up on your list of suggestions. But you can go ahead and ignore those suggestions because I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Rebecca, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been great getting to know you a little bit.
Absolutely, Dan. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks. Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay. Are you already logged into 506B me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506B me, everybody.